In the vast, uncharted wilderness of northern South Korea, a gathering of people stood quietly, each one brought there by mysterious masked individuals. The atmosphere was thick with unease. And among the group, a young boy couldn't help but feel the pressure mounting. Sensing his discomfort, an older man beside him offered a calm smile. "First time on an expedition?" he asked, his voice seasoned with experience. The boy nodded slightly before accepting a tin mug handed to him. "I've explored portals and dungeons before," he said, "but never a truly unexplored region." The old man's smile faded into something more serious. "Then prepare yourself mentally more than anything else. These lands have remained untouched for centuries. They're perfect nesting grounds for monsters, and most of them are ancient." Despite the warning, the boy remained hopeful. The expedition's led by someone from the Martial Lee clan, the patriarch's own brother. "We'll be fine." But the man shook his head grimly. "That so-called leader? He's no hero, just an illegitimate son. Weak, talentless, and banished from the clan. They call him Leal." He paused, lowering his voice. "Only 7th rank. We won't be able to count on him." As if to prove the point, a nearby guard barked an order at the expedition leader Leal, and he obeyed without resistance, his eyes dull with acceptance. It was clear, even his own men didn't respect him. The group was supposedly under the protection of the Dark Sword Squad, in a unit directly linked to the clan's patriarch. But something felt wrong. The young boy's instincts told him this mission wasn't what it seemed. Leal, once just a child bearing the weight of the Martial Lee name, had dreamed of glory. When he was selected by the clan's strongest weapon during the steel selection ritual, his heart brimmed with hope. If he gave it his all, he believed he might one day become a name the clan would proudly remember. But fate was cruel. A physician's cold diagnosis shattered his dream. His mana pathways were unstable, unsuitable for magic, and fragile for martial arts. Reaching the 9th rank would be a miracle, the doctor had said. The clan's elders dismissed his earlier success as a fluke. Still, the boy still refused to give up. By 25, he reached the 7th rank through relentless effort. Yet at 30, the clan expelled him. If not for his older brother, he wouldn't have left alive. He disappeared. 10 years passed, filled with chaos. Unexplored zones widened, and monster invasions spread like wildfire. One day, a flying newspaper smacked him in the face. The headline made his blood run cold. His father, Lee Tashin, the pinnacle of martial arts and patriarch of the Martial Lee clan, was dead. And on that very day, the Dark Sword Squad appeared before him again. When Shield asked how they'd found him, they said nothing, only handed him a decree. Disappointed but not surprised, he realized the clan still had plans for him. Even more shocking, his third brother, Lee Gansong, had taken the position of patriarch, not the eldest. "What happened to the first brother?" he asked. Again, silence. Then came the mission order to investigate an unexplored zone. "I'm just a 7th rank martial artist," Shield protested. "Are you refusing a clan order?" They asked coldly. He knew the answer. Refusal meant death, so he accepted. But rage simmered within him. Now, in the present, the group continued their trek until the same young boy from earlier froze. Before them stood a building abandoned, yet eerily well preserved. "We're going in," said one of the Shadow Squad soldiers. Inside, horror awaited, skeletal remains of humans, and a massive, ancient monster. Then one soldier stepped forward, his voice cold. "I found it." Begin. Without warning, he struck down the young boy, his life extinguished in a single blow. Shocked, the elder cried out, "What are you doing?" Shield stared in disbelief, his mind reeling. They were always meant to die. The soldier said casually, "You should feel honored to be used for the clan's goals." Fury erupted within Shield. He struck the soldier from behind, wounding him. But the assassin only laughed. "The Sovereign himself ordered this. We're to exterminate everyone here. Quickly, cleanly. Unless you resist." The mood turned lethal. A brave adventurer tried to attack, but was sliced into. The assassin mocked Shield's weakness. "You bear the blood of the Lee clan, yet this is all you are." Then came the finishing blow. Pain exploded through Shield's body as the world turned white from a massive blast. Still conscious, Shield crawled forward, desperate. He needed a weapon, anything. Then he saw it, a sword embedded in the monster's skeleton. With trembling hands, he grasped the hilt, only to watch the blade crumble into dust. "No," he whispered. The assassin approached, pathetic. "I'll end you with the dignity of a Lee." As his vision dimmed, Shield's final thought echoed, "Are the heavens truly this cruel? A life spent in hardship, in rejection, in failure. If only I had a second chance." Then a voice. Eugen, his mother's voice. But a man responded, "When we found her, she was already gone." Another man stepped forward, Li Tashin, his father, but this time he looked young, and beside him stood his brother, Choi, also youthful. She'll step forward, but what? He saw were baby hands, his hands. Somehow, impossibly, he had been reborn. He remembered everything. And now, he bore a new name, Young. This time, his fate would change. The patriarch ordered Young to participate in the steel selection ritual, alongside the 8th child. The butler protested Young was too young, but Tashin dismissed it, and, left out in the nursery, Young breathed a sigh of relief. His father's aura had been overwhelming. But something was clear. This wasn't a dream. These events were real. He had truly returned. Several months passed. The day of the steel selection ritual arrived, an event where the children of the clan would be chosen by a weapon, revealing their fate. In the past, Tashin had been chosen by dozens of blades. His eldest son had been selected by swords, tomes, and his staff becoming a legend. Now, it was Young's turn. Dressed in ceremonial robes, he stood silently. His maid, Moon Gagwa, smiled warmly. "You look handsome," she said. "So brave, even in this new place." Too young, Gagwa had always been more of a mother than anyone else. In his past life, she had wept for him, stood by him when no one else did, and was exiled for it. Not this time. He gently touched her cheek. "I'll protect you." A servant arrived. "Preparations are complete," the butler informed the patriarch. Tashin stepped forward, followed by the maids, each holding their assigned child. As they approached the glowing gate, it opened into a vast arena filled with a roaring crowd. Among them sat the clan's matriarch, Ban, Minister Li Tahong, and 2 of his sons. They whispered among themselves, noting the unexpected presence of the illegitimate son brought from the outside world to participate. But this time, the boy they underestimated would be the one to change everything. In the grand viewing stands of the steel selection ritual, tension simmered beneath the formalities. Among the honored guests sat the first son, Li Anyung, and the third, Li Gunong. The minister, Li Tahong, observed the proceedings with mild intrigue. "Strange," he murmured, noting the small boy standing at the center. "Isn't he far too young to be participating?" Li Anyung furrowed his brow. "I don't recall anyone that age ever stepping into the ritual before." Gunong, though slightly annoyed by the attention, nodded in agreement. "Who is that child, anyway? I've never seen him," from his high place above them. Patriarch Tashin raised his voice, his words echoing across the grand arena. "The steel selection ritual is about to begin." As the ceremonial process began, a maid approached, carrying a delicate girl in her arms, the 8th daughter, Liwa. Without delay, the patriarch stepped forward. Pulling a small blade from his robes, he gently pricked the tip of the girl's finger, drawing a bead of blood. Wa cried in pain, but her blood shimmered, reacting to the ancient magic in the ritual chamber. The energy-linked glowing strands of mana snaked through the air, until it connected with an ancient weapon resting on the altar, the ivory rang sword, a legendary relic that had lain dormant for generations. Tashin, his expression composed, summoned the sword with a flick of his magic, and held it aloft for all to see. "This relic," he declared, "has chosen Li Hua from today onward. It is hers." A ripple of awe swept through the crowd. To be chosen by such a weapon was a sign of great promise. Hua, tear-streaked but composed, bowed and thanked her father, only to harden her gaze as she realized it was now Young's turn. Whispers began to spread, gossip and disdain like wildfire. "Isn't he a bastard?" someone hissed. "What is a child like that doing in the ritual?" another sneered. Still, the patriarch held the boy gently, just as he had with Hua. He made the cut, but Young didn't cry. Tashin smiled. "You have courage, my son." And then, the moment of fate. In his past life, this was the day when a divine-rank sword-clear echo had chosen him. Now, as his blood touched the ground, Young prayed for the heavens to open the path once more. The audience continued murmuring, voices dripping with scorn and prejudice. Meanwhile, Minister Li Tahong noticed the matriarch's expression, her irritation barely concealed. A hidden child of her husband. No wonder she's bitter, he thought. Still, he muttered, "A child born illegitimately has little hope." Here. Just then, an old man stepped up beside him, Lai Chiyoung, the chief elder of the martial Li clan. "You seem quite interested in that bastard child," the elder said, his tone needling. Tahong turned cautiously. "Elder Young, I didn't notice your arrival." The old man's eyes narrowed. "So that's the child the patriarch brought back." I don't know what Tashin is thinking. This ritual is meaningless for illegitimates. The jab was sharp-handed. "Intentional, like you know," Tahong growled. "That's rich coming from someone whose own son failed the selection despite being legitimate." The elder smiled mockingly. "Touche. But remember, a bastard will always be just that, a bastard." Ta Hong clenched his fist, but just before tensions could escalate, a sudden burst of light erupted from the arena floor. The entire ritual chamber fell silent. The glow intensified bright blue, divine, and engulfed everything. Then it happened. Not one, not two, but multiple legendary weapons stirred to life. The Blood Spirit Spear, the Has Iron Blade, the Manhwa Divine Sword, the Agile Dragon Crossbow, each one awakened. Responding to the same boy, gasps of disbelief echoed from every corner of the hall. From the observatory above, even Leon Young's sword began to shine. He turned to his brother. Mayan, can you believe this? Mayan smiled faintly. That boy, he truly has talent. Gunong, as always, remained cold and unreadable. Confusion and suspicion spread through the crowd like wildfire. Something's wrong, some murmured. This shouldn't be possible. Patriarch Tashin raised his hand. Silence. The arena instantly obeyed. By clan law, he declared, any weapon that chooses a child belongs to them. And yet, we must not rush judgment. I have a suggestion, Ta Hong said, stepping forward. Tashin regarded him curiously. Speak. Ta Hong bowed slightly. It's true the law supports him, but the ritual was never meant to hoard glory. It's a right that binds generations. I suggest we follow tradition and allow the boy to choose one weapon himself. After a pause, Tashin nodded. Very well, with a wave of his hand. The patriarch levitated the glowing weapons and gently lowered Young to the ground. Before him lay a breathtaking arsenal of divine arms, ancient relics, and legendary blades. Young stepped forward. He passed the dragon-slaying sword, the white will spear, and even Falheim, the staff made from the world tree, where fairies sleep. The celestial sword, forged at the alignment of sun, moon, and stars, glinted in the light. But something pulled at his soul. He turned away from them all. Then he saw it buried in dust, overlooked by many, a black blade, the Black Twilight Sword. A weapon discovered by the founder of the clan in the heart of an unexplored region. Its powers were unknown. It was never classified as divine, and no descendant of the patriarch had ever been chosen by it. Tashin's heart stirred. Why that one? He thought. Was this a foolish choice of a child or something greater? As Young reached for it, the sword responded not with a glow, but with a pulse, like it had been waiting. The patriarch raised the child into his arms and shouted, the Black Twilight Sword is chosen. Young, the ritual is complete. But in the shadows, the matriarch's fury burned. Another obstacle in her life, and one she vowed to eliminate. 9 years later, in a private manor within the Marshall Lee clan grounds, Young, now 9 years old and officially recognized as the 9th son, informed his maid, Gagwa, that he was off for afternoon training. Let me escort you, she insisted, clearly worried. I'll be fine alone, he replied calmly. Still, she followed, changing the subject to mask her concern. Why are you going to the first zone? The others are all free. There's someone waiting for me. Just then, they heard shouting from Training Zone 7 there. A young girl swung a wooden sword again and again, her grip tight. That's Lady Awa, Gagwa whispered, the 8th daughter, though they were only 5 months apart. Gagwa reminded Young to address her respectfully. He refused. She's not really older, he muttered. The instructor barked commands. Your sword must be an extension of your body. Irritated, Wa snapped, throwing her wooden weapon aside. It doesn't matter how I hold it. A calm, soothing voice interrupted. Please continue. You're doing well. The speaker was Commander Bakley Hanna, renowned warrior of the Ebony Squad. He's far too skilled to be teaching a child. Young observed. Gagwa misread his tone and suddenly broke down, apologizing for not securing such a teacher for him. Stop doing this, Young said gently. I'm grateful, Gagwa, and I don't need someone like him. He's only here because of the clan name. Instead, Young trained in Zone 1, the sacred training hall of the clan's direct lineage, a place steeped in history, now rarely used except for symbolic purposes. But today, there was another reason he was there. A door creaked open, and what lay beyond would begin the next chapter of his destiny. In Zone 1 of the training grounds, a place long forgotten by most, lay shelves upon shelves of ancient, weathered weapons. Unlike the newer sections, this area held relics of the past, blades that had once carved history but were now left to gather dust. Among them, after a short search, Young's eyes lit up. He found the sword he had been looking for. A faint smile crossed his face as he held it up, pondering softly, should I use it today? After traveling 9 years into the past, Young's world had changed in ways he could never have predicted. But the most astonishing change wasn't something physical, it was the strange black energy that stirred within him. When he focused deeply, this energy allowed him to see things others couldn't. like the hidden memories locked within a weapon's dot on that day. As he held the sword and channeled his energy deeper than ever before, he found himself immersed in one such memory. A voice echoed in his mind, calm yet commanding. Refine your fundamentals. The basics are the same for both the beginner and the master. So he trained not under a living master, but through the experiences of those who had once wielded these weapons. And through this method, Young began to understand something profound. The older the weapon, the more incredible the knowledge it held. One memory in particular resonated deeply. Mastering the basics will make you unshakable, like a pillar. Even more fascinating, the more emotional the bond between the weapon and its owner, the clearer the memories became. Eventually, Young activated the first form of the 7-star sword Scarlet Wind. Joy surged through him as he finally completed the technique he had struggled with for so long. But in the 2 years since returning to the past, he had already absorbed the memories of nearly every weapon in the training hall. Just then, a voice called out behind him. It's been a long time since I've seen a 7-star sword form that perfect. Young turned to see a familiar face, Minister Li Taohong. He was a rank for martial artist, a general of the clan, and though not of the main bloodline, his talent had earned him respect. In the past, he had also cared for Young. Smiling warmly, Young greeted him, but the minister brushed aside the formality. I see you here every morning when I go to work. I'm proud of you. Taohong's tone softened. I know how hard it is, being treated differently by your brothers. But Young shook his head calmly. It's all right. I'm still part of the lineage. And over time, I've learned the true meaning behind our clan's name to prove oneself with the sword. That's what I'll do. I'll prove myself, with my own strength. Taohong was both moved and saddened. Despite Young's conviction, he was still an illegitimate child in the eyes of the clan. Yet the boy's words stirred something within him. You're nearly old enough for the naming ceremony, the minister said thoughtfully. Even if it's a bit late, would you allow me to be your teacher? But to his surprise, Young refused. There's a rule, he explained quietly. I can't accept your offer. Frustrated, Taohong countered. Everyone else is breaking the rules. They're receiving private training, eating the best food. But I won't, Young said firmly. Even if they break the rules, I won't, because I'll prove myself my own way. Staring at the boy, the minister blinked. Is this child really only 9 years old? The resemblance to Young's late father was uncanny. Finally, Taohong sighed, chuckling quietly. You're as stubborn as your father, he said, patting the boy's head. But it bothers me that I can't do anything for you. Is there anything you need? Young hesitated for a moment, then, with a small smile, nodded. Actually, there is just one favor. Sometime later, a luxury car pulled up to a heavily guarded gate. Security stepped forward immediately. Please stop the vehicle. State your identity and reason for entry. I'm General Li Taohong, the driver replied smoothly. This is just a routine inspection of the storage. The guard nodded, and then glanced at the passenger. And the boy, he's my nephew, the general said casually. A field trip for educational purposes. Satisfied, the guards let them pass inside. Young put on his best performance, pretending to be amazed, playing the role of a curious child seeing the legendary storage facility for the first time. Taohong chuckled. You're really that excited? Yes, Young said with a grin. After all, this is where the clan's greatest treasures are kept. And more importantly, the item I'm looking for is here too. There's an old saying in the Li clan. If it's a legendary weapon, it's in the secret storage. And as they descended deeper, Young began to believe it. Before entering the final floor, Taohong explained, the basement, that's where the sealed weapons are. Dangerous ones. Some say there are weapons down there that devour their wielders. Young responded bravely, but inwardly his heart beat faster. You won't be going that deep, his uncle reassured him. I've got some business upstairs. Explore to your heart's content and be careful. As the elevator doors closed, Young finally let go of the innocent act. His face hardened. His mission was just beginning. The basement of the secret storage known only to a few was called the weapon graveyard. Here, countless weapons and relics were sealed, many forgotten by time. But Young was here for one specific item, the unlimited dot. By default, it appeared as a dagger. But with mana, it could transform freely in size, shape, and power. In his past life, it had been discovered by Li Gunong, who gained the title Constant Change and became the clan's patriarch, surpassing even the rightful heir. And when he found Young, he had eliminated him without hesitation. Not this time, now. Young would find the unlimited first, and to do that, he would check every single weapon if needed. In our past, he inspected every dagger-like relic he could find. Nothing. Still, he was certain it had to be here. Then he bumped into an old, rusty weapon. It clattered to the ground loudly. Curious, he crouched beside it. How did it get so corroded? As he reached out to touch it, black flames erupted not from his hands but from the dagger itself. The heat surged. The fire consumed everything in a flash. Young found himself standing atop a battlefield of swords and corpses, the sky heavy with silence. It wasn't just a memory, it felt real. Then he saw it. A creature, towering and monstrous, so fearsome. It felt as if nature itself had cowered. This was no ordinary beast. It was an apocalypse-ranked monster. One of the ancient terrors that had once crawled from a blue hole to destroy entire civilizations. Young's legs trembled. His heart raced. I'm going to die. There was no way he could face something like this. But then movement. Among the fallen, a man stood, clad in battered armor, his bloodied sword dragged behind him. The man stepped forward and passed Young without a word, only to vanish in an instant and reappear midair, launching himself at the beast with terrifying speed. With a shout, the warrior unleashed his finishing move, Demon Slash. A blade of golden light exploded through the monster, followed by a blast so immense it shook the entire realm. The beast was ripped apart. Young stood frozen, awestruck. But then the warrior turned and looked directly at him. Their eyes met. The man narrowed his gaze. A child. What are you doing here? Young opened his mouth to answer, but no words came. Declaring it an act of mercy, the mysterious man calmly informed Young that he would eliminate him painlessly. Desperate to escape, Young resisted, but rather than dying, he found himself yanked back into reality. Still gasping for breath, overwhelmed by fear, he dropped the rusty dagger to the floor, his body trembling. The terrifying pressure he had felt in that illusion lingered, as if it had all been real. But then, to his astonishment, the old, corroded dagger began to glow faintly, revitalizing itself right before his eyes. Gripping the blade tightly, Young's uncertainty vanished. He knew without a doubt, this dagger was no ordinary weapon. Without hesitation, he made a small cut on his finger, sealing a pact in blood. This time, he would become the master of 10,000 soldiers. Suddenly, a brilliant, blue light radiated from the blade, surrounding it like a divine aura. Eager to confirm its power, Young swung the weapon in a simple horizontal slash, and in that single motion, he knew he had found it. The treasure hidden deep within the secret storage, the unlimited. Days passed. A week after that fateful discovery, sounds of sword strikes echoed from Training Zone 1. Young stood before a wooden dummy, visibly frustrated. His blade had failed to land a clean strike. Since acquiring the unlimited, he had forged the blade into a ring to hide it in plain sight. Yet he still couldn't understand the mysterious move the masked man had performed, the Demon Slash. He assumed the technique was simply too advanced for him, something only demonstrated to plant a seed for later. Regardless, that man's fluid, elegant movements were far beyond anything Young had seen and impossible for him to mimic. But Young refused to be discouraged. Clutching one of the training swords, he resumed practice with renewed excitement. Before his regression, he had been considered a failure, unable to perform even the family's basic sword techniques. Now, standing at the threshold of mastery, he saw these arts in a new light. Although he couldn't yet replicate the Demon Slash, he remembered every detail vividly, the precise form the man had used to kill that monster. Then it hit him. He's a child. At just 9 years old, trying to copy an adult's movements would be inefficient. He needed to adapt the technique to his body slowly, naturally. Closing his eyes, Young focused his breathing, aligning his stance with his own proportions. In one clean motion, he unleashed a strike that cracked the ground beneath him. A smile broke across his face. He was improving. The only issue that remained was mana. No matter how many times he attempted to channel mana the way he remembered, the technique refused to activate. It felt as though he was missing a key component, something essential. Still, he wouldn't give up. From the shadows at the back of the room, a girl watched him train with an amused smile. Young continued swinging the sword until, suddenly, the girl stepped forward and stopped the blade with her bare hand. Shocked, he instinctively took a step back. "Where did you learn that technique?" she asked. Cautious, Young demanded to know who she was. Though his instincts told him she was from the Martial Lee clan, she seemed surprised that he didn't recognize her. "I suppose that's not unusual," she said. "I don't go out much." She asked his name. "Young," he replied. Her face lit up. "That's a unique name," she said cheerfully, gently shaking his shoulders. "I'm Lee Gaiyan." Young recalled hearing her name from the minister in the past. He remembered that her grandfather despised her because she was different. But most importantly, she never held back. Returning to her earlier question, Gaiyan asked again where he had learned the technique. Trying to deflect, Young asked why she cared. It's an ancient martial art, she said with genuine interest. I love those. From her sleeve, she pulled out a small wrapped package and handed it to him. Curious, Young opened it. Though the text was difficult to read, worn down, and nearly illegible, it was clearly a detailed guide on a high level. Mana technique. Reading it stirred something inside him. For a moment, he doubted the rumors he'd heard about his aunt. When Young asked about one of the passages, Yin explained. These are ancient mana techniques based on mana pathways, not mana circles like the modern ones. Young was stunned. Until now, he hadn't considered the idea. Modern magic stores energy in the heart, but in the past, it flowed directly through the body. Yin added, maybe the old ways were better. That's why so few records survive. One passage stood out. Determined to test the theory, Young dashed off with sword in hand. He focused, rejecting the idea of channeling mana back to the circle. Instead, he visualized mana flowing freely through the pathways. This, he realized, was the exact principle behind the masked man's technique. Recreating the strike again, the effect was staggering. The damage was now dozens of times more powerful. Both Young and Yin were speechless. As he caught his breath, Yin rushed up and grabbed him by the collar. Was that an amplification technique? She asked in disbelief. Young hesitated, then nodded. Double quotes, how? She demanded. Even I, your older relative, haven't figured it out. Young smirked. Do I have to tell you? She scowled. You learned it from that notebook, didn't you? The one I gave you? Yin explained she had spent over 10 years trying to decipher it. Ever since being expelled from the clan. Practically pleading, she begged him to share what he discovered. Young agreed, but under 3 conditions. First, she must not speak about him to anyone without his permission. I just don't like people talking about me, he said. She nodded, surprisingly understanding. Second, no lies. They had to trust one another. She solemnly agreed. As for the third condition, Young kept it a secret. 1 year passed. A maid came running to find Young, now 10 years old, calling him to the training center. Yin followed behind as the boy asked what the rush was about. The maid, a bit flustered, handed him a sealed letter. It was what Young had been waiting for. An official summons to the naming ceremony scheduled for 10 a.m. on September 10th at the Central Training Hall. The seal was from Li Meionjon, representative of the Patriarch. But Young noticed something odd. His father hadn't said anything about expeditions recently. Yin, on the other hand, was furious. Now that I'm improving, you're leaving, she snapped. Young reminded her that this was important and promised he would return quickly. Their year-long collaboration had revealed a revolutionary technique that combined old and new. Mana accumulated through a circle, but channeled using the pathways. It had changed everything. Still grumbling, Yin agreed later, at the training incubator. The real ordeal began. The trainees were told they would be subjected to magical attacks for 30 minutes to build resistance, but this time, the past had shifted again. The instructor was Jang Wook, leader of the infamous Blood Tiger Squad. Wook expected the 9th son to fail immediately. After all, he'd only received basic training. But to his astonishment, Young deflected the magical barrage using mana techniques with such precision that Wook froze in place. Even the look Young gave him was intimidating. Young wasn't just enduring, he was testing himself, aiming to match even the 8th daughter's level. That alone forced Wook to raise the intensity. But despite being a 10-year-old illegitimate child, Wook couldn't help but feel his previous assumptions had been arrogant. From that moment on, the instructor decided to change course, offering Young more than just the basics. Eventually, Young completed the harsh training. Looking back, he couldn't help but think how absurd it was to throw a child into a magic-drenched death trap just to build endurance. Still, he reflected on how far he'd come. He didn't expect an apology from Wook, but he noticed a change in the man's tone, and that, for now, was enough. As exhaustion took hold, Young allowed himself a moment to rest. Just as things began to settle, a sudden disturbance ripped through the air. The 8th daughter launched a surprise attack against the protagonist. Calm and composed, he blocked her assault with ease. Her face twisted in frustration as she called him a bastard. It was Liu, a direct descendant of the clan. With authority in her voice, she demanded a private conversation, but Young jerked his hand away, eyes narrowing. What are you trying to pull? Before she could answer, another girl who interjected angrily. Show some respect. She's a legitimate daughter and older than you by a year. Unfazed, Young scoffed. I don't have time for pointless talks. His indifference enraged Liu, who clenched her mana-infused fist. Don't ignore me, she shouted. At first, Young intended to walk away, but seeing that she wouldn't back down, he swiftly dodged her next attack and seized her by the neck, not to harm her, but to make his point. I'm busy, Go cry to your mother if you can't handle that. With a frustrated sigh, he let her go and turned away. But Liu's pent-up emotions exploded. She shouted about how she was always compared to him, how unfair it was. How she trained relentlessly without rest, unable to even sleep. Before she could say more, Young silenced her by covering her mouth. It's easy to blame others, he said coldly. But as a bastard child, I don't have that luxury. I don't whine, I act. If you want an apology, surpass me. That's the only way things work in this family. Burning with anger, Liu took his words as a challenge. She vowed to outperform him at the upcoming naming ceremony and make him beg for forgiveness. But instead of flinching, Young smiled. I look forward to it. Elsewhere, in Zone 7 of the training hallland area reserved for direct descendants, the Lady of the Li, martial clan Ba Wan, arrived unannounced. A maid escorted her to the training ground, where she found her daughter Hua, drenched in sweat and deeply focused. What are you doing? The matriarch asked sternly, startled. Hua hesitated. Training. Ba Wan's expression darkened. I heard about your defeat. Her disappointment cut deep. Didn't I tell you to crush your rivals? Then, with a cold voice, she continued, stop this if you're only doing it to avoid being scolded. Despite the weight of her mother's expectations, Hua stood firm. I'm doing this because I want to. I'll defeat him no matter what. Ba Wan's eyes narrowed. So, a bastard child has become your motivation? Hua nodded silently. Her mother reminded her, you are a legitimate daughter. Victory should be your default, not a goal. With that, she pulled out a small vial from her sleeve. If you can't surpass him, crush him, she said, her voice like ice. It's cruel to say this to a child, but this is how our family works. Back at Young's mansion, a curious scene unfolded. He stared at his computer screen, puzzled. According to the 14th week report, he was ranked number 1. Gaga, overjoyed, hugged him tightly. You did it even without my help. Before the warmth could settle, a loud bang interrupted them. His aunt, Sue, appeared asking to spar. I just finished training, Young protested. That's exactly why you should keep going to release fatigue, she insisted. That's not how it works, he replied skeptically. Still, he agreed, saying he had something to show her. When she saw it, her jaw dropped. He had obtained his first star. Normally, achieving a star meant passing through 3 grueling stages: iron body, where the body is physically reinforced; Kong, the transformation of Mana's nature; extraordinary skill, grounding supernatural abilities. But his aunt's technique was different. Even in the early stages, her mana arts could exhibit advanced abilities. That's why they were ranked by stars. After inspecting his energy flow, she confirmed that he really had earned a star. Still baffled, she asked how he did it so quickly. Young explained, by observing. At first, I failed to control the mana, but then I realized mana flows like water, and the body is just a vessel. Impressed, she chuckled. Then I should be able to do it too. Eventually, feeling proud, Young smiled, but before he could celebrate, she tackled him with a bone-crushing hug. Now, she grinned. Let's aim for the stars. That's rushing it, Young muttered. She waved it off. If you can earn 1, you can earn 2. And when you do, the naming ceremony will be easy. Young nodded. But as he stood, he noticed something beside her. What's that? She placed a hand on a nearby box. Suddenly, a projectile burst from it, exploding behind his head. She smirked. It's filled with metal pellets. If you can't move while channeling mana, you're dead in real combat. With that warning, she asked, shall we begin? Young, though wary, agreed. Days later, at the clan's training arena, the 8th and 9th children gathered. Their instructor, Young Wan, introduced himself. I'm one of the leaders of the Blood Tiger Squad, he said. Today, I'll teach you the clan's techniques. Choose your weapon. You have 1 minute. As the two approached the weapon rack, Young noticed the girls staring at him. What are you looking at? He snapped. Got something to say? Feigning innocence, she asked if he was choosing a sword. Young didn't answer. He simply picked up several weapons and climbed into the arena. Young Wan frowned. What are you doing? You told us to bring the weapon we use, Young replied. I use them all. The instructor raised an eyebrow and scoffed. Idiot. Drawing his spear, he added. I'll teach you secret techniques, not stances or skills. Among our clan's hidden arts is something called the Flames of Enlightenment. But to learn them, you must first awaken your 6th sense. Then, adopting a battle stance, he warned. I'm going to awaken yours now. Just as Young tried to explain what was coming, Young Wan vanished and reappeared before him, delivering a devastating strike that sent him flying. Still, the instructor was impressed. He dodged enough to avoid a direct hit, not bad. But Young was rattled. He hadn't properly undergone this training in his previous life. This time, though he would endure it all. With newfound resolve, he attacked again only to be struck across the face. When he attempted a sneak attack from behind, Shita was instantly taken down. A month passed. Youngwon's training was brutal, bones cracked, internal injuries mounted. It was the kind of regimen number 10-year-old should endure. But Young wasn't just enduring it. He was starting to enjoy it. One day, after another spar, who awoke on the ground dazed. Where am I? Young stood over her. This is the 22nd time you fainted. I'm only on number 16, he smiled. As the two children trained under the relentless eye of their instructor, Jongwon observed them closely. His thoughts turned to the 8th daughter. Despite enduring increasingly fierce attacks, she continued to stand strong. Her resilience was undeniable, but she wasn't the only one who stood out. From the very first day, Jongwon sensed something unusual about the other child. Young. At first glance, he seemed foolish, lugging around an arsenal of weapons. Yet, in time, that perception changed. The boy wielded each weapon with skill, proving that none were for show. Just a month into training, even the hardened instructor found himself growing excited. Young's progress was undeniable. He was starting to understand the essence of battle. Without delay, Jongwon clapped his hands and called the children to attention, signaling the end of their break. Back to your positions, he ordered. Firmly, exhausted but not defeated, the two returned to the training field. As they caught their breath, Young leaned toward his sister. She glanced at him, sensing something was up. I'll give you a signal, he whispered. Block Jongwon for me, just once. She blinked, skeptical. Why should I? Because, Young replied. I want to land a hit on him. That was enough. With a half smile, she nodded. You'll owe me for this. Then, with no more words, she charged forward. Young followed right behind. He knew the truth. At his current level, he couldn't possibly win. But with teamwork, perhaps there was a chance. Jongwon watched, amused. Working together. A bold move, but only if the plan succeeded. And he had no intention of letting it. As Hua lunged to the instructor, Jongwon responded with a swift counterattack only to be caught off guard. Young blocked him. The moment of hesitation was all they needed. Young called out, now. Hua soared through the air to distract the instructor. Young, now a step behind, saw his opportunity. There was only one way to land a clean strike. He began channeling his aura, focusing everything into his sword. He aimed to replicate the powerful technique he'd once witnessed. The ultimate strike of the slashing demon, the move that felled an apocalypse glass monster. He dashed forward. To Jongwon's surprise, the boy reached him with lightning speed. The instructor instinctively raised his guard high while Young's attack came low. In that fleeting moment, Young believed this will work. He tightened his grip and threw everything he had into the strike. But reality hit harder. With ease, Jongwon blocked the blow and in an instant countered with devastating force. The strike hurled Young into a nearby wall, crushing stone and earth as his body slammed into it. Silence fell. Jongwon stepped forward, eyes calm. 37 days, he said. Then turned to Young, who was barely conscious. Congratulations. You've awakened your sixth sense. But even as he turned to attack 1x, he added coldly, you've still got a long way to go. The battle ended with both children unconscious. Jongwon, satisfied, declared, that's enough for today. As he walked away, Hua groaned and glared at Young. Nice plan. She grumbled. That went well. But Jongwon was lost in thought. Young had broken one of his own rules. He'd used mana. And what's more, the strike had been sharp enough to pierce through a supposedly invulnerable guard. The instructor's eyes narrowed. Young's instincts were refined too. Refined. Someday, he thought, even the elders will tremble before him. By the 47th day, Hua awakened her own sixth sense. With that, both children officially graduated. Young used the remaining time to rest and reflect until one quiet afternoon, a visitor arrived at his home. It was his older brother, Leon Young, the firstborn son of Lee Tashin, the star, near rank 2 in both magic and martial arts, admired, feared, a legend in the clan. But to Young, he was simply his brother. Over tea, Leon offered an apology for not being around more often. Young simply replied, it's all right, Leon. Found it strange this was the first time they'd ever met in person. Yet Young recognized him immediately. It's only natural, Young replied. You're the eldest. Everyone knows who you are. The term half-brother hung unspoken in the air. Leon looked down, uncomfortable. You're just as much my brother as the others. Don't be so hard on yourself. Young apologized, but Leon quickly dismissed it. No need for that. Speak informally with me like we did when we were kids." The mood lightened, and Leon reached into his sleeve. He pulled out a bottle of rare elixir from his days at Eiffel Magic University in France. "Nectar of the gods," he said. "Only 500 made each year." Young accepted the gift, stunned. They sat in silence until Leon spoke again. "You're different. The others, they always saw me as a rival. But you?" Young's expression hardened. "You're mistaken. I am a rival. We all are. Don't treat me like a cute little brother. I might become a serious threat one day." Leon chuckled, ruffling Young's hair. "Then I'll be waiting for that day." Young smiled, but inwardly. A promise formed. "This time, I'll be the one to protect you." Days later, the second trial of the Lee Marshall clan arrived. The naming ceremony. The children were transported to a place known as the Red and Blue Island, where the land itself changed color with the density of mana in the air. Their task survived for 3 weeks. Surveillance devices would track them, and the judgment window would remain open for 2 days after the deadline. As they landed, Hua turned to Young. "I have something to say." Young felt a weight lift. She was finally ready. She'd been trying to say something since the start. "Go on," he said gently. She hesitated, then reached into her coat. Young mimicked her, disabling the communicator dot from her pocket. She pulled out a small vial Trance, a deadly poison meant to corrupt mana pathways in children. His eyes widened. "My mother gave it to me," she said. "It evaporates. In 5 minutes, there won't be any evidence." Young opened his mouth to speak, but she crushed the vial on a rock, shattering it. "I won't use it," she declared. "I'm going to defeat you. For real. So I need you to fight with everything you've got." Young grinned. "I was planning to anyway." Then she warned him, "Be careful at the island center, it's dangerous." He teased her for being worried, which started a playful argument until a strange sound stopped them both. "I'm leaving now," she said, turning. "Don't die." As she disappeared into the woods, Young watched her go. "My destiny isn't at the edge of the island," he thought. "It's at the center dot in the observation room." Clan elders monitored everything. The 8th daughter was excelling her first real test, and she'd already taken down several beasts. The elders praised her, wondering aloud if it had really been just 47 days of training. She wasn't always this strong, the instructor said, but someone provoked her to grow faster. The 9th son, Young. "What's the boy doing now?" an elder asked, probably looking for a hiding spot. Someone mocked. "Coward," another sneered. "He's not worthy of our name." "Enough," Leon Young interrupted. His voice was calm but commanding. "In a place this dangerous, finding cover is smart, strategic." The room fell silent. Some nodded, ashamed of their earlier words, but the head elder wasn't moved. "Being ordinary in the Lee Marshall clan is a sin. Am I wrong?" The room shifted back in his favor. Leon clenched his jaw, mocking a child for his blood. How low have we sunk? Meanwhile, Young reached the center of the island dot with swift, efficient motions. He burned a medicinal herb and covered the area with leaves. Even the harshest elders admitted his camouflage was near perfect. Then he did something unexpected. He removed the tracking devices, carefully placing them on leaves and covering them. Seconds later, the surveillance feed went dark. In the control room, gasps echoed. The instructor's eyes lit up. Interesting. But the brothers, watching silently, felt only concern for Young and for what might come next. Back during the trial, the protagonist murmured quietly to himself there was no reason to reveal his full strength to these people. After all, he could now use Limitless without restraint. And since he was stranded on this island for the time being, he might as well make the most of it. Determined, Young stepped forward with resolve in his eyes. Later that night, however, his mood soured. Sitting before a simmering pot, Young eyed his dinner with clear disgust. The brew smelled foul and looked worse. Though it was meant to be mana, herb tea, it was hard to believe such a thing could even be consumed. But Yim had no elixirs he never had, not even in his past life. Instead, he learned how to survive with what he had. These apothecary methods weren't just secondhand knowledge. They were taught to him by someone precious, his aunt. Whether it worked or not didn't matter. He had to increase his total mana, no matter the taste, no matter the toll. By morning, the pot was empty. He'd forced it all down, and with that, began a grueling 3-week solitary struggle, a test not only of his strength, but his endurance. By the 18th day of the naming ceremony, in the office of the first son Leon Young, a report came in. A subordinate respectfully requested entry and quickly apologized. It was bad news. The Blue Sword Squad's vice leader, Eugenian, entered and reported troubling movements. A large group of vagabonds had entered the northern region of South Korea. It was unusual; they typically headed toward the unexplored regions. But this group was heading south, straight toward the clan's Mana stone mines, only 2 days away. Mai and Young immediately grew suspicious. Bandits heading south could only mean one thing: they were plotting something. But Jang Hin saw deeper. These vagabonds could be a disguise, hiding a more formidable force behind them. He added that the massive organization, the Fortress of the Nine Dragons, was mobilizing near the northern border. The Lee clan and the fortress shared a border, and the fortress had a history of provocation, often trespassing and testing boundaries. Now, with the clan's patriarch away, someone might have leaked this crucial detail. Leon asked if the intelligence branch had confirmed this. Jang Hin, however, had uncovered it before they did. Concerned, Leon instructed full cooperation. With the intelligence unit, they needed more answers still. Mai and Young hoped, prayed it was nothing more than a false alarm. But far away, beneath the pale moonlight in a dark forest, a magic circle flared to life. Space twisted and cracked, revealing a glowing portal. From it, a man stepped through, a cruel smile tugging at his lips. 2 nights, he whispered, that's all I need to kill the illegitimate child. The next day on Red and Blue Island, the mana in the air grew oppressively dense. Then a thunderous stomp shook the ground. A towering rank 7 monster Draco. The dragon appeared, roaring with fury. Young stood before it, worn from endless battles. There was no time to rest. The dragon swelled its throat and unleashed a fire roar, obliterating everything in its path. But Young dodged just in time. Using the smoke and flames as cover, he infused his blade with mana, leapt onto Draco's skull, and unleashed the slashing demon technique with all his strength. The strike landed true. The beast fell, charred and defeated. Catching his breath, Young admitted, if I had fought this monster when I first arrived, I would have died. It had taken him 19 days to reach this lair. But that wasn't his only goal. There was something else, something more important. Suddenly, a noise. He hid swiftly, ready for battle. Just as he suspected, Rank 8 monsters, the lizardmen, emerged. But something was wrong. Lizardmen typically stayed near the outskirts. Now they were attacking erratically, then retreating, a clear sign they were being manipulated. One of them suddenly twitched unnaturally. That confirmed it. Young struck down to instantly. The third he let flee. He would follow it to uncover the truth elsewhere. The repeated phrase "face the Marshall clan" echoed through the jungle. The source? A hidden figure watching from the shadows, whispering to himself that the Lee bloodline truly was fascinating. When the fleeing lizardmen arrived, the man was stunned. How had a boy defeated so many high-ranked monsters? Still, he was confident. After all, Young was just a child. To the tamer, Nishiyama Shugo, he was nothing more than a pawn who would soon fall into his most obvious trap. No need for a backup plan. But Young narrowly avoided the trap and realized immediately the enemy was a tamer. That meant someone had helped him teleport onto the island. A circle must have been prepared in advance, and that meant someone in the Lee clan had betrayed them. Young knew he had to act fast. Reinforcements would arrive too late, and they'd never discover the traitor in time. So he made his decision, handle it alone, using his stealth arts, silently. He erased his presence, and the moment an opening appeared, strike just before the killing blow. Shugo's artifact began to glow and shriek a danger detection charm. The attack was blocked. Face to face, Shugo smirked. You're better than I expected. But Young calmly replied, no, you're just weak. Enraged, Shugo attacked. Young responded with the third form, True Blue, of the 7-star sword technique, aiming to end the fight. But suddenly his body froze. He couldn't move. Shugo erupted with laughter. The boy had stepped into an advanced formation that blocked mana circles, rendering him helpless. Yet Young didn't panic. If the mana circles were blocked, he'd reroute through his internal pathways. In a heartbeat, he shattered the seal, slayed a nearby lizardman, and appeared instantly before Shugo, his blade pointed directly at his throat. Shugo stuttered in disbelief. How did you break free? Young said nothing. I've already notified the clan, he said coldly. Surrender now. But Shugo shouted, I'll kill you and escape. Before Young could react, a massive force smashed through the air, shattering his sword and launching him into a tree with brutal force. Dazed, Young looked up. Standing before him was the guardian of Red and Blue Island, the turtle-headed mountain. A rank 3 beast. Shugo explained. While he couldn't fully control the monster, he only needed one command kill. A flurry of inscribed command papers filled the air. The order was given. Though the guardian wasn't entirely under control, it was still a terrifying threat. And Young knew it. He had one option left. In his hand was a banned mono-enhancing drug, forbidden due to its devastating side effects. And he also had something more, something passed to him by Aunt Giona, a forbidden skill she warned him to use only in life or death situations. This was one of them. Taking a deep breath, Young activated the heaven-challenging technique. His body vanished in a bolt of light, reappearing atop the Guardian. He struck with everything he had, yet the beast didn't flinch, not even a scratch. Realizing brute force wouldn't work, Young began preparing a new strategy, but before he could act, the Guardian began to gather dense energy in its mouth. A devastating final attack was coming. Just as the roar of the turtle-headed mountain echoes across the battlefield, dread settles in the hero's chest. This wasn't just any sound, it was a fear-infused roar, a death knell carried on waves of pure mana. Caught in its influence, Young finds his body paralyzed, unable to move. But then, without warning, that same mysterious dark energy from before begins to stir within him. This time, however, it reacts differently. It pushes back against the fear. Somehow, his dark power resists the paralyzing effect of the beast mana. Seizing the opportunity, Young doesn't hesitate. With everything he has left, he launches forward, drawing upon the first technique of the infinite style. He unleashes a powerful variation of the cutting demon ability. The force of his slash is so immense, it cuts through the monster's roar and sends it rippling skyward. But even this moment of triumph comes with a price. The effects of the forbidden medicine begin to kick and sharp pain grips his chest, his strength fading fast, collapsing to his knees. Young realizes he only has seconds left before his body shuts down completely. Yet even in this state, he moves driven by determination. He runs, desperate to find the tamer. Time blurs until, at last, a faint red thread of energy appears on the ground, guiding him. Only 3 seconds remain. At the end of the line, Shogo, the tamer stares in shock, but Young is still too far to strike. Without missing a beat, he yells, commanding his sword to extend. With precision and power, he lands a final blow. The tamer falls. Panting, Young braces himself with his sword, barely conscious. He knows if he feigns now, it's over. Reaching into his pouch, he pulls out a vial, his aunt's voice echoing in his mind, reminding him to drink this after using the technique. He gulps it down, then darkness. A moment later, he awakens not in the forest, not among monsters, but in a vast, isolated white space. Confused, he searches for the tamer and a mountain beast, but they are nowhere to be found. Suddenly, a sharp pain tears through his body as if his very essence is being unraveled. And then, from the void, an enormous, otherworldly eye materializes. It stares at him with faint surprise. You've already come this far, it speaks. These things are not meant to be consumed by humans. Yet here you are. The entity was hoping he wouldn't wake yet, but seeing he has, it makes a decision. A strange item drops before him, a pulsing purple hive-like stone. Young recognizes it immediately, the purple luminous stone of clarity. But then, the eye reveals the cruel truth. You are not here to eat, it says coldly. You are the meal. A new era is coming. Evolve or be consumed by time. Then just as suddenly as he arrived, Young opens his eyes back in the real world. Hua is beside him, visibly relieved, though irritated at being called by name without honorifics. She still asks gently how he's feeling. He's in agony. His body is wrecked, but strangely, his mana capacity has grown. He wonders aloud whether he really consumed the luminous stone. With unsettling calmness, Hua gives her diagnosis: broken mana channels, a twisted intestine, fractured bones. Yet, somehow, he's alive. Young, feeling guilty for using the miracle medicine, cuts to the chase and asks why she's there. At that moment, his older brother, Young, enters, his face pale with worry. He rushes in with healing potions, pleading for his brother to recover. Young insists the potion alone will suffice. Once Hua steps out, Young confesses something grim. Had Young died, he would have personally annihilated the tamer and every last member of the organization behind him. He praises the boy as a martial artist, but admits that as an older brother, it was horrifying to witness. Young apologizes, admitting he hadn't expected the turtle-headed mountain to appear. His brother is at least comforted to know that Young understands the line between arrogance and confidence. Then, Young turns to a more pressing matter. Having defeated the tamer, does he now have access to his information? Young had anticipated the question. The tamer was once a rank 5 sorcerer, expelled for experimenting on Oniato and attempting to master forbidden sorcery. He had even activated an advanced curse while the guardian beast slept, hoping to kill Young. Young asks if his brother has identified the mastermind behind all this, but Young admits, not yet. Still, Young is convinced he wasn't the real target. The enemy's plan was to damage Young's reputation, make it look like he failed to detect intruders. Surprisingly, his brother agrees, though it might tarnish his image. He says it won't change much in the long run, preparing To leave, Min Young is stopped by Young, who proposes an idea. Why don't we fake it? He says. Say you predicted the tamer's appearance. I'll testify. The brother hesitates. It would rob Young of credit, but the boy insists. It's better this way. Less suspicion. Min Young nods. What do you want in return? Access to the library, Young replies. 3 days will be enough. The two shake hands. Before leaving, Min Young returns a small dagger to Young, one he clearly recognizes, though he says nothing. The gesture confirms he's keeping Young's secrets. The boy is surprised at his brother's quiet cleverness. A few moments later, Hua returns, grinning. Must have gone well, she says. So, what test are you taking? Instead of answering, Young throws the question back at her. Hey, I asked first, she yells. With pride, she declares, I'm going for the hardest one. Young, smirking, answers, I'll be heading to the fighting hall. She frowns. She didn't even know that place existed. Young explains it's hidden on the outskirts. She scoffs. Disappointed, he's still choosing easy challenges. But what she doesn't know is that difficulty on this island isn't defined by location, it's defined by understanding. And Young sees no need to correct her. Later, deep in the forest, Young searches for the hidden cave to begin the second trial of the naming ceremony. After hours of wandering, he finds it an unlit structure, the fighting hall, lighting a torch. He approaches the stone walls. They look ordinary, but Young knows better. Drawing his sword, he slices through a fake wall, revealing ancient iron gates. Joy floods him. This is it. He makes a small cut on his palm and lets a few drops of blood fall onto the gate. As soon as his mana-infused blood touches the metal, the doors creak open. Dust flies down inside. Young steps toward an altar. As a descendant of the great Lean Marshall clan, he pours his blood into a vessel and prays, asking the ancestors to accept his challenge. Only one trial awaits inside the fighting hall, a battle against one's true self. Unlimited attempts. No escape until victory. He steps forward, and before he can react, a blade brushes his neck. He dies. Only it's an illusion. He wakes in terror, clutching at his throat. The pain was real. The fear, overwhelming. That is the danger of this trial. Illusions so perfect, they drive lesser men insane. And if he lost like that, it means his illusion can use power even he hasn't yet mastered. Again and again he tries. On the third attempt, his abdomen is pierced. On the fifth, his bare-handed strike is countered with a brutal arm lock. By the 10th, it ends like the first, swift and decisive. Dozens of attempts pass. But at last, on the 80th try, something changes. For the first time, it feels like a fair fight, and Young knows he's finally starting to understand himself. Until now, Young's greatest strengths had always been his adaptability, his talent for handling the unexpected, and his uncanny ability to shatter assumptions. In this final trial, he takes it a step further, manifesting an imaginary spirit of combat, a spiritual projection of his fighting will. But because the trial was a mirror of the self, the illusion mimicked every move he made. As the battle rages on, Young begins to notice something unsettling. The more they clash, the more alike they become. It's as if his reflection is no longer just mimicking him, but understanding him. Then suddenly, the illusion shifts tactics. It backs off, dropping its spear and summoning a longsword, clearly aiming for a more direct and decisive approach. The moment the blade pierces Young's body, the illusion expects a cry of pain. Instead, Young simply mutters, "Idiot." The illusion falters, confused. That hesitation is all Young needs. He had dropped his guard on purpose, and now, channeling the full force of the cutting demon, he slashes through the illusion with a single devastating strike, splitting it cleanly in half just before fading away. The illusion smiles, proud of the one who defeated it. Passing the fighting hall is no ordinary feat. It's a rite that unlocks a hidden ability passed down within the clan. In the past, Young had only awakened the most basic skill reinforcement. But this time, he dares to hope for something greater. Suddenly, a change stirs inside him. His mana, once blue, begins to shift, golden energy surging through his veins. When the transformation is complete, Young instantly knows what this ability is. Something powerful, something rare. Outside the sealed gates of the fighting hall, a crowd is gathered, nervous and impatient. Among them stands the minister, face tense with frustration. How many incidents is this boy going to cause during a simple naming ceremony? But his complaints are cut short. A surge in mana density shocks the crowd right as the ancient gate begins to creak open from within. Young emerges, bloodied and barely conscious. He stumbles, his strength all but gone. The minister rushes to him, catching the boy in his arms. "Stay with me, wake up." Young's lips part, whispering something faint. The minister leans in, expecting a revelation. "Water." And food. Silence. The minister freezes his confusion, quickly turning to rage. You brat, is furious. Scream echoes so loudly, it's heard even beyond the mountain. Sometime later, at the young master's residence, his loyal maid Gagwa can barely contain her emotions. She had been worried sick first when he challenged the guardian beast, and again when he vanished into the old fighting hall. She had planned to scold him, but as soon as she sees him alive, she breaks into tears of joy. I'll get your bath ready, and make your favorite meal, she sniffles, wiping her eyes, changing the subject. Young asks where his aunt is, but Gagwa hesitates, then admits there's something he should know. Not long after, Young finds his aunt imprisoned, yet smiling the moment she sees him. She doesn't care about her situation. Instead, she asks about his manhwa's progress, trying to stay focused. Young grows serious, but she quickly reassures him she's fine. What shocks him is why she's in chains at all. She had caused a scene, accusing the elder of being guilty, in front of her own brother. I just couldn't stay silent, she says. I thought I might never see you again. Doing nothing. It felt like I was suffocating. Though Young still isn't sure he fully trusts her, he realizes something has changed. He started to see her as real family. So, he makes her a promise. Wait for the right moment. I'll get you out of here. She urges him not to push himself. But Young just smiles. You need to be free. And I'll be back soon. That night, far away, a plane lands. At the bottom of the stairs, several family members wait, including the 8th wife and her child. Then, at last, the clan leader, Teshin, appears. I apologize for the delay, he says calmly. His wife responds with a smile. Dinner's ready. Later, in the quiet of that arrival, Teshin glances across the gathered crowd, his gaze locking onto one boy in particular. Young. Despite everything, Teshin focuses on him, the illegitimate son. Still deep in thought from a conversation aboard the plane, he speaks. I have no use for anyone unwilling to fight for this family. But looking at Young, he adds, though, perhaps one among my sons still desires to challenge me. The others are confused, unsure who he means. But Young knows. He can feel it in his bones. Even with his emotions hidden, Teshin saw through him. Later, the grand banquet begins. It's meant to celebrate the naming ceremony, but Young feels it's far too extravagant. Among the guests are notable figures, the youngest leader of a magic tower, the vice chief of the Oniato. But before Young can dwell on the opulence, the family butler approaches with a bow. Young master, the patriarch requests your presence. Confused, Young follows. Outside the palace, he finds Teshin waiting alongside Young, the clan's eldest son. Young's heart sinks. He suspects his plan has been uncovered. Teshin speaks plainly. The naming ceremony. The outsider. According to Young, you were involved. Young confesses. Yes, he made a deal to gain access to the library. Surprisingly, Teshin doesn't punish him. I'll let it slide. Once. Young, however, isn't so lucky. His punishment will come after the banquet. Young watches his brother walk away with a smile, hoping he'll be okay. Returning to the matter at hand, Teshin acknowledges Young's achievement. Despite the false report, the outcome of the incident was entirely thanks to him. So, his library access will remain. And for discovering the fighting hall, Teshin grants him one reward, anything he desires. Later, Teshin stands at the center of the banquet hall, speaking to the crowd. Thank you all for joining us to share in the blessings of our 2 children. With Young and Hua standing in the center, the naming ceremony officially begins. The patriarch calls forward the 8th daughter, chosen by the sacred sword. Her path is said to be one of light, and so, to help guide that light, she is given the name Suyin. Overwhelmed with gratitude, the girl bows deeply, her heart full. After the naming of the 8th daughter, the patriarch immediately calls forth the 9th son, Young. Although it feels different from the steel selection ritual, Young decides not to overthink it. Teshin, observing his son, praises him as intelligent, strong, and adaptable like a masterpiece forged by a master blacksmith. With a snap of his fingers, Teshin returns to him the name Keel, once given by Hessen to lift strong as steel. But this time, the meaning holds more weight, and with pride swelling in his chest, Keel beats his chest and vows to rise to the top of the clan, far away. In a cell of the Lee Marshall clan's legal department, his aunt is on the verge of madness. She screams in frustration, furious that she missed her nephew's naming, a promise he swore he would keep. Just then, a guard receives a call and informs her that she's now free. Though a later punishment still awaits, she doesn't care, overcome with joy. She kicks open the door and runs out, only to be stopped by none other than Keel himself. Surprised and emotional, she asks if he was the one who freed her. Without a word, he hands her a document stating she now owes him a debt, and more shockingly, she's been officially appointed as an elder and master to the ninth son. Smiling, Keel playfully tells his new master to take good care of him. Later, as time passes, Gadwa the maid remarks that this day marks a true beginning. Keel agrees it's the start of his life as a disciple, now 13. He bids farewell to Gadwa and heads to the academy. Rumors about the ninth son fill the air. Some call him a lucky bastard. Others insist no one climbs so high without true power. As he arrives, attention shifts to the eighth daughter, Suyin, also 13. Praised as wise and like the ninth son. Noticing the clear difference in treatment, Keel keeps quiet until Suyin approaches him. Embarrassed, she expresses hope that he wasn't offended by her earlier disappointment about his choice to go to the outskirts. Keel brushes it off, telling her not to worry. Relieved, she admits she thought he was petty, something that stings more than she realizes. Changing the subject, she brings up Jianga, now both their master and a member of the library. But the conversation ends as the instructors call everyone to line up for class assignments. The cadet program spans 3 years and students are sorted into 5 classes based on talent. As expected, Suyin is placed in class 1. Then it's Cool's turn. Calmly accepting his result, he thanks the messenger. Though everyone can see his disappointment, he's assigned to class 5, known as the trash heap, reserved for the least favored. Likely due to interference from the elders or Lady Beck, the result is manipulated. Yet, Keel sees this as an opportunity, not a setback, and walks toward class 5 without complaint despite Suyin's visibly irritated stare. Others in the crowd suspect she wants to interfere, but Keel knows his path along the way. He hears other students complain about their placement, especially since the elite martial clan took all the top spots. Keel sympathizes. Suddenly, a boy introduces himself as Kim Han, 14 years old, son of a blacksmithing family serving the Lee clan. He says it's an honor to share a class with Keel, who asks why. Kim simply says he was curious. Seeing Kim is honest, Keel relaxes. When asked about being in class 5, Kim admits he probably belongs there, but is determined to improve. Keel smiles, telling him he's already earned his approval. At the dormitory, 15-year-old Choi In-ha greets them alongside to other classmates, and instructor Lai Jong-ho, who skips the usual lesson to give a quick orientation. Keel recognizes Lai from his past life, remembering how he used to offer private lessons. In-ha introduces himself as the current class leader, admitting he's repeated the year twice. He explains that students can choose their seats and must elect a class leader through light duels followed by voting. Just as In-ha begins to explain the rules, Keel interrupts, mocking the process and calling it childish. Picking up a wooden sword, he challenges the class to wake up. This isn't a school, it's the martial clan. In-ha tries to calm him, suggesting a more peaceful solution, but Keel insists they'll only understand through action. Slamming the sword into the ground, he dares the entire class to come at him. One by one, he defeats them all, exhausted, but standing, stunned. In-ha can hardly believe what he's witnessing. With nearly everyone down, Keel turns to him, demanding he step up as the final challenger. The reluctant In-ha accepts. They clash, and the force of Keel's blows rattles the season repeater. Even with no energy left for a full attack, Keel refuses to hold back, not even for a training match. Deep down, In-ha only grows more confused as he thinks about why he reacted the way he did. Once, he'd had a burning desire to win, just like Keel, but over time, he believed he had matured by accepting reality. Yet today, that old hunger returned. He still wanted to feel victory. Their swords clash again, but it ends quickly when Keel lands a precise blow at the base of In-ha's weapon, disarming him and injuring his wrist. Crying out in pain, In-ha collapses to his knees, and Keel tells the others to take him to the infirmary, but In-ha suddenly screams that it's not over and stands once more, now swinging with his left hand. Keel immediately senses the change in his spirit. With unshaken resolve, Keel breaks his guard again and strikes him in the stomach, knocking In-ha unconscious. This time, Keel calmly repeats the order: get him to the infirmary. Standing before the battered class, he declares that he lives every second like an hour, and every hour like a year. From the top of the arena, he shouts that life only gets easier when you commit, and to protect what he loves, he will keep fighting. His words leave the others questioning whether they've ever truly lived that way. When instructor Jong-ho arrives, he scolds Keel for injuring so many students. But Keel insists this kind of pain is necessary if they're to survive in the martial clan. Jong-ho argues that everyone has their own limits, but Keel retorts that even the cats understand. Now there's no point explaining further. Still, he acknowledges the instructor as a good man, which is rare in the Lee martial clan. That's why, Keel says, Jong-ho must lead these cadets even if it means pretending to be a villain. The next morning, Keel leaves his room sore from yesterday's fights. Though some students glare at him, they no longer avoid his gaze. One greets him respectfully, and Kim shows up early to apologize for his performance. Keel tells him it's natural for cadets to be weak at first. And when Kim asks how to become stronger, Keel doesn't claim to have all the answers but praises his instincts. Kim managed to dodge 3 fines the day before. Keel advises him to build on that, and Kim thanks him. Soon, Inha arrives as well. Still injured but determined not to be seen as pathetic. His presence makes Keel proud. Later, Jong-ho shows up for roll call and is surprised to see 11 absences for excused. 5 not in a class, completely drained. The mood has shifted. The once relaxed cadets are now tense, like prey sensing a predator. Normally, today would be a light assessment, but recalling his talk with Keel, Jong-ho changes his mind and orders it to begin. After 10 grueling hours, the assessment ends and Keel takes over as training supervisor. Though exhausted, he knows rest is a luxury they can't afford. As he steps into the arena, he reintroduces himself as class leader and makes it clear his training won't be gentle. Anyone unhappy with it can challenge him. Kimson, irritated, complains about the rules, but Keel stands firm. Then he orders them to spar with the person next to them. Only 6 remain at the end, while the rest give up. Keel dismisses them. 2 rest, but outside, complaints start. Kim snaps at them to stop whining. They couldn't even land a single hit on Keel despite his fatigue. The cadets go to Inha, reminiscing about the past. But he reminds them that he liked it so much he ended up repeating the year. He knows if he doesn't change, he'll stay a failure. Understanding Keel's intent, he decides to work harder and encourages the others to do the same. Later, in the library, Keel tries refining his mana, but his aunt stops him. The aura collapses every time she attempts it. Frustrated, she didn't expect these problems after he reached the 3rd star. She wonders aloud about ancient mana techniques, prompting Keel to recall the mysterious Unlimited. Though he can't access its full memory, he remembers it being sealed long ago when dark energy covered the world. An even powerful beast feared it. After heroes sealed the darkness at Mount Mongui, the king rewarded them with land, and they forged one sword Unlimited. This discovery is significant, changing topics. His aunt praises him for reaching the 3rd star on his own, and believes he'll soon break past the obstacle. She explains that he can now begin to use janky techniques based on aura, though they'll take time to master. Curious about his training, she offers her help and cryptically assures him he'll find out soon. When he does, Keel realizes his bad feeling was justified. In class, students are told to prepare for a special lesson on mana techniques. Elder Jianga, Keel's aunt, is introduced to a round of applause, which embarrasses her. Without delay, she starts teaching, impressing Keel with her growth as an instructor. After the lecture, she announces that they'll learn an improved version of the Iron Line technique. When asked why she's teaching this, she replies that although direct bloodline members get full support, she forged her own path, something that moves Keel deeply. If her theory is right, she says, the technique's power will double. With excitement building, the instructor declares that they'll now use her method in combat, as everyone pairs off. Troy Inha challenges Keel and warns he won't hold back. Keel welcomes the challenge and won't give the first move. As they fight, Jianga watches proudly, thinking how brutal Keel is in combat, just like she used to be. Despite the late hour, the academy grounds remained restless. Jana, walking through the training corridors, suddenly overheard students whispering behind her back. At first, she ignored them until the topic turned to her nephew. Their words stung. They mocked him for being illegitimate, yet begrudgingly admitted he had a mysterious power that outpaced even their hardest efforts. Before the boys could say more, Jana appeared right before them. Her eyes, sharp and unyielding, locked onto theirs. Were you just speaking ill of my disciple? She asked coolly. Startled and ashamed, the two immediately bowed an apology. But their excuses did little to quell Giant's ire. Even understand what you're saying about Keel, she snapped out. At that moment, another voice interrupted. Bosun stepped forward, bitterness in his eyes. We all work hard, he said, but he treats us like we're beneath him. It's not fair. We come from different worlds. Jana's gaze softened, not out of sympathy, but understanding. You're right, she said quietly. You don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. If you saw how he lives, you'd be ashamed of your complaints. That only fueled Bajong's frustration. Then I'll see it for myself, he muttered. I'll find out what makes that bastard so special. Later that day, after training, Bosong set out to observe Keel. He followed him for hours, expecting to find some hidden advantage. Yet what he saw confused him. Keel seemed perfectly ordinary. Born talented, perhaps, but nothing more. One student, curious, asked Bosong if they could walk through the main estate. Since Keel didn't live in the core bloodline area, Bosong allowed it, but deep down, he wasn't satisfied. I won't let him control our fate forever, he vowed. Tonight, I'll know the truth. By 9 p.m., Keel was still in the research lab. Bosong's friends began to drift off one by one, exhausted and disillusioned. Only Bosong remained, hiding in the shadows. Eventually, Keel emerged, his body fatigued, but his eyes still alight with focus. Bosong sighed in relief, thinking it was over, but Keel wasn't done. He walked straight into the direct bloodlines. Private training field. Terrifying noises echoed from within. The spine students froze. Is that even training? One whispered. Finally, someone muttered what they all were beginning to believe. He really is different. But Bosong, proud and stubborn, replied, I train too. Every day. The tension between the trio thickened. Eventually, only Bosong remained, still chasing an answer. He followed Keel until the boy entered his home. A guard stopped Bosong. Who's there? It's me, just had something to do. He lied, though it broke the rules. The guard let him go. Be quick, he warned. Even at 2 a.m., the lights in Keel's room still burned out by morning. Bosong was a wreck from sleeplessness. Yet there stood 13-year-old Keel, wide awake, moving with purpose. Bosong watched in disbelief. How could someone survive on so little rest? In contrast, Bosong remembered his own nights spent watching TV or gaming. Keel was different not just in talent, but in resolve. Spotting him, Keel approached. What are you doing here? Bosong stammered. Aren't you tired? Keel narrowed his eyes. You followed me. Zong tried to justify himself. You have help from the direct bloodline. It's unfair. I've lived this way long before I became a cadet, Keel replied, his voice calm. I'm always tired. Then why do you push yourself so hard? Bosong asked, genuinely confused. Keel leaned in, whispered something only Bosong could hear, and in that instant, everything Bosong thought he knew crumbled. Elsewhere, in the training arena of the martial clan's patriarch, Teshin received an update. Though the 7th and 8th class dungeon orders were ready, he wasn't satisfied. Storing weapons is one thing, creating survivors is another. He gave a new command, raise the test standards. This time, the patriarchs would see for themselves if that child could truly lead. At the Class 5 training field, Instructor Jamu arrived, surprised to find the students already training on a weekend. Pleased, he praised them and announced a sudden change. The semester evaluation had been moved up to compensate. They'd get a week off. Excited, the students cheered, but none left the field. They're watching the young master. One of them said. Keel stood in front of them. This time is yours. Rest if you want to. The students were stunned. That was not the response they expected. Should we start again, like we did on the first day? Someone asked. Yes, Keel said, smiling. But remember, rest is part of training. Back at the lab, his aunt was annoyed that Keel interrupted her holiday. But she wasn't exactly working, just watching a tear-jerking video. Keel brushed it off and began to think. Why was the evaluation pushed forward? There was something he still needed to unlock, a memory hidden within the unlimited. But it wouldn't appear yet. Accidentally knocking over papers, one caught his eye. It detailed the difference between ancient and modern martial arts. Ancient styles were designed to kill monsters. That was it. Realizing the truth behind the slashing demon, Keel rushed back to the training field. He summoned the unlimited, imagining a colossal, non-human enemy. One with no weaknesses, only overwhelming power. The technique surged through him. He cut the monster in half. In that moment, he was pulled into a new memory. Within the memory realm, the same powerful warrior appeared, his speed unmatched. But what stood out most was how his aura changed with each weapon. Another man asked him if these new techniques had names. They're not even real techniques. The warrior replied. Then let's call them the 10,000 changes back. In reality, Keel's eyes opened wide. That warrior had the same hair and eyes as the direct bloodline. Soon, he was back in a van heading toward a danger zone. Kim noted how the scenery grew desolate. This is still the safe zone, Keel said. I've lived in worse. They arrived at the forest of human-faced spiders, a real dungeon. Their mission, film an adult spider. The danger was real, but the students were united. Even Bosong stood firm. I believe in the young master. Inside the dungeon, Keel moved alone. He needed to become prey, valuable prey, strong prey, the kind monsters would bring back to their nest. After killing Several spiders, he let himself be caught inside the cocoon, poisoned but alive. He cut his way out and searched. Then he saw something horrifying, hundreds of cocoons. But one was different. It pulsed with dark energy. Suddenly, it burst open. The queen of human-faced spiders emerged, a rank 5 monster in a rank 6 dungeon, and it could speak not aloud, but through dark energy. "Give it to me," it screamed, sensing the dark power inside Keel. But her predator's pressure didn't work on him. It backfired, shattering the nest's foundation. Furious, the queen unleashed her full wrath. But for Keel, this was only the beginning.